We must put the teachings in the words of my perfect teacher into practice. When studying the difficulty of finding the freedoms and advantages, we should carefully contemplate each meditative instruction and truly feel that having a human life is very rare. And having the human life to practice the Dharma in particular is even rarer than the morning star. In our daily endeavors, we should often reflect on this. Now that I've encountered the Dharma and the teacher, I clearly know what to do and what not to do. If I don't practice the Dharma now, I risk being reborn in a lower realm or the God realm, which means I will never have such a precious opportunity to practice. In the past, many great masters of the Nyingma, Kagyu, and Kadampa schools attached great importance to the practice of the difficulty of finding the freedoms and advantages and made it their lifelong practice. With the help of such practice, they eventually manifested auspicious signs of achievement at their deaths. Today's practitioners also need to establish the foundation through ngondro practices. I have been repeating this since the very beginning, and I will keep mentioning this in the future. It is only through repetitive reminders that this will eventually sink in your mind. When the great Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche was still alive, he would teach the words of my perfect teacher almost every year. So many senior disciples who had been following Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche for years had conviction and faith in the Dharma that is incomparable to today's practitioners. Some young practitioners at Larungar never met the great Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche. Others met him, but never stayed close to Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche for long periods. When I chat with them or get in touch with them, I can tell that their devotion to the Dharma is not as strong as that of senior disciples. Why? It is because the great Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche placed great emphasis on ngondro, and his disciples devoted themselves greatly to the preliminary practices, and thus those disciples were and are assured about their Dharma practice. As you should know, the state of realization doesn't arise without cause. All sentient beings, especially those in this degenerate age, commit many wrongdoings in this lifespan, not to mention during the innumerable lives since beginningless time. For too long, we have been submerged in the afflictions of the 5 poisons, including desire, anger, and ignorance. So, it is very unlikely we will immediately uproot habitual tendencies just by occasionally reflecting on the Dharma or by receiving a bit of the Guru's blessings and teachings. An ordinary person's mind can only be tamed and changed step by step, instead of instantly. Except for a very few great enlightened masters from the Tibetan region, the Han Chinese region, and India, who, due to great merit accumulated from previous lives, recognized the nature of the mind immediately after receiving pointing out instructions from their destined teachers. Most practitioners still need to make great efforts to study and practice the Dharma. Thus, each practitioner, be he a monastic or a lay practitioner, must invest more effort and practice diligently. The more time the practitioner devotes to practice, the better. It's better to stay in a formal Buddhist institute or a Buddhist study group for an extended time. It is barely possible to revamp a practitioner's mind by studying or practicing the Dharma for only a few days or months. Now that you have the opportunity to study the words of my perfect teacher, you should feel very happy. As for me, I am always happy each time I teach this text, because this supreme text covers the words of lineage masters. Although I am not practicing it well, I have great confidence in it. I don't just talk the talk here. I have spent the time and energy of the first half of my life on it. Nowadays, many people long for spiritual liberation and genuine truth. If you can benefit from this text, even just a little bit, I am willing to give everything of myself to transmit the teaching to you. I hope all Dharma students make the aspiration. I shall devote the rest of my life to hearing, contemplating, and meditating. This will bring benefit to all sentient beings as well as to you. A practitioner is meant to tame their mind and help all sentient beings. I also made such an aspiration 2 days ago. In this life, and in many lives yet to come, I vow to spend my life on hearing, contemplating, and meditating. I vow to tame my mind and to benefit all beings with the Dharma. Apart from the Dharma, we ordinary people may find joy in delicious food or a piece of elegant clothing, but we should know that those worldly pursuits are not our ultimate goal. Such worldly things are just like a child's playhouse. When the child grows into an adult and reflects on their former pretend or imaginative play, they clearly realize the play was not something real. Nowadays, people are very attached to wealth and social status, but a few decades later, when they look back, they will find such things have little meaning. Thus, we should all set up a meaningful goal for our lives. Otherwise, if we care for nothing but what to eat, drink, and play, we are no different from an animal. Therefore, we must consistently practice ngondro. Despite the cold weather, the Sangha members should persevere in practicing ngondro. It is minus 20 degrees centigrade at Lorong Gar these days, but this is not as cold as Sershul, where the Buddhist institute that the great Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche attended is located. I had been to Sershul once in the summer, and the place was still bone-chilling cold. I've never had a similar experience at Lorong Gar in the summer, and even if I have, it was only during the early years of my stay here. Conditions for studying the Dharma at Lorong Gar back then were much worse than today. Every morning around 7 a.m. or 8 a.m., I would give tutoring sessions to my Dharma peers in the yard of my makeshift cabin. We all sat on the frozen ground with thin layers of clothing. My yard was just a piece of flat land, and we didn't have cushions to sit on. We all sat directly on the ground to study the Dharma together. It wasn't until 10 a.m. that the sun finally came out. We would then continue for the second class, the third one, and so on. This was how we spent our whole morning. At that time, we also ate simply. For example, after getting up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m., I would eat the roasted barley flour called sampa, then boil water to fill up my thermos bottle. I wouldn't have to make a fire for the rest of the day. Around noon, I would eat a bit of sampa again and drink half the bottle of water. Then around 1 p.m. or 2 p.m., I would attend the great Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche's teaching. After class, sometimes Phuntsok Rinpoche would stay a bit longer to chat with disciples, so I would also stay for a while. Other times I would go back to my cabin in the afternoon to give teachings, and then at night I would finish the other half of the water in my bottle. Therefore, I only boiled water once per day. This was my schedule for many years. Whenever I think about it now, I feel nostalgic in my heart. Those days have gone forever. Such a simple life is really good for one's practice. Some monastics at Lorong Gar live a meager life, which in fact is of great help for their practice. Otherwise, if the conditions are too good, be it in a city or in a remote place, this may negatively influence one's Dharma practice. The learning opportunity we have now is only transitional, and it is hard to say whether it will last long. Therefore, please take the teachings of the great Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche seriously, have great joy toward the Dharma, and devote yourself wholeheartedly to the Dharma. There is no need to pay special attention to weather, sickness, your family's comments, and more. Just concentrate on the Dharma. Only a pure and calm mind can fully accept the Buddha's teachings. It is just as only a perfectly clean mirror can clearly reflect an image. If the mirror is obscured by dust and grease, nothing can be reflected on it. Therefore, when listening to the profound Dharma, a Dharma student should concentrate on the teachings with faith and veneration. The longer he devotes time to listening to the Dharma, the better. It is not sufficient to only listen to teachings for 1 year. If a person just muddles through the teachings but devotes much time and effort to food and clothing, he is simply a worldly person, not a Buddhist practitioner seeking liberation. The above talk may seem irrelevant to the content in the text, but I still want to remind you this. Although it is cold in winter, please make sure not to lose faith in the Dharma. You should retain solid faith in the Dharma. Otherwise, you won't receive the true meaning of the teaching. Only when you grasp the meaning of the Dharma will you never regress in this life. Otherwise, no matter how many teachings you've attended and how long you've studied the Dharma, if your mind is not tamed, even if you are temporarily living in a Buddhist community, you will still regress when you encounter a difficult situation. 3. The advantage of possessing the sense faculties. Studying the Dharma requires the advantage of possessing the sense faculties. Here, the sense faculties exclude the mental faculty and refer to the 5 sense faculties, including the visual or eye faculty, auditory or ear faculty, olfactory or nose faculty, gustatory or tongue faculty, and tactile or body faculty. A person lacking any of the 5 sense faculties cannot fulfill the criteria for taking monastic vows. As known by monastics, Buddha Shakyamuni set the rule that people who want to become monastics should possess all 5 sense faculties. Otherwise, they are not allowed to join the Sangha. There are 2 reasons the Buddha set such a rule. First, it can prevent them from being mocked by Thirdikas and non-Buddhists, which causes people not to generate faith in the Dharma. Second, people lacking any of the 5 sense faculties cannot perfectly receive the Dharma. So, it is not because the Buddha lacks compassion that he doesn't allow such people to take the monastic vows. Nowadays, such rules also apply to selecting a civil servant in China. An applicant has to go through a written test, in-person interviews, and a physical checkup. If he has a visual or hearing problem, he's unlikely to be selected. 3.1. Lacking the visual or eye faculty. When lacking the eye faculty, a person doesn't have the good fortune to see the teacher, the Buddha's image, the sutra, the shastra, and so on. A blind person has to face many challenges in life. The Chinese government is trying to help such people adapt to society, such as training them to become massage therapists so they can have a skill to make a living. Nevertheless, they still encounter many difficulties and inconveniences in life. As they cannot see, it's hard for them to distinguish days from nights, friends from foes, white from red, and more. Let alone hearing, contemplating, and meditating, they can hardly be self-reliant in daily endeavors. 3.2. Lacking the auditory or ear faculty. When lacking the auditory faculty, a person doesn't have the good fortune to listen to the teacher's teaching and pith instructions. As a result, he is not capable of hearing the Dharma. Let alone the extraordinary sound of reciting the Buddha's name, he cannot even hear the ordinary sound of singing or talking. A smart deaf person can read lips, but it is still hard for him to grasp the meaning like a normal person. When I was a child, there lived an old lama near my family's tent. He had impaired hearing due to old age, so sometimes he would read lips. I often teased him by asking, "How are you?" He would answer, "Good." To check whether he could hear me, I would again say to him, "I'll kill you." He would nod and repeat, "Good, good, good." I was such a bad boy back then. Back to the Buddha's time, if born deaf, a person may not be able to study the Dharma due to his lack of access to hearing aids that were only available over 2,000 years later. 3.3. Lacking the tactile or body faculty. When lacking the tactile faculty, like a patient in a vegetative state who can breathe but is unaware and unresponsive to touch, this person doesn't have the good fortune to hear and contemplate the Dharma. In 2005, a case concerning a woman in a vegetative state became viral. The so-called Terry Schiavo case involved Teresa Marie Schiavo, who was in an irreversible, persistent vegetative state for nearly 15 years and whose life was prolonged by artificial life support. In 1998, Teresa's husband petitioned the court to remove her feeding tube and offer her euthanasia. This was opposed by Theresa's parents. The two parties started a highly publicized and prolonged series of legal disputes. Theresa's feeding tube was twice removed and reinserted several days later. Her right to die had involved multiple appeals and numerous motions, petitions, and hearings, and spurred highly visible activism at both the national and international level. When Theresa's feeding tube was removed for the third time, her parents appealed, but the federal court upheld the original decision, so her feeding tube was not reinserted this time. This case ultimately involved state and federal politicians up to the level of President George W. Bush, who signed legislation moving the case to the federal courts. 13 days after Theresa's feeding tube was disconnected, she died. Regarding this case, some Christians argued that Theresa, even in her vegetative state, should have had the right to live since she was a living being. Some non-religious people favored offering her euthanasia so her family would be freed from the burden. Therefore, we should make an aspiration. I wish I won't be in a vegetative state before my death. Otherwise, a vegetative patient not only brings trouble to family and friends, but also lives a life worse than death. He may not even think of the 3 jewels. There are many reasons causing a vegetative state or paralysis, including diseases, car accidents, or earthquakes. For example, some people were injured and paralyzed during the Wenchuan earthquake. A Tibetan Smor I know hurt his spine in a car accident and was paralyzed in the lower part of his body, although his upper body remains functional like that of a normal person. Some of you occasionally get sick and feel pain. In fact, you can still see, hear, and move. You can go wherever you want. You can do whatever you like. With such freedom, what do you complain about? If you can visualize yourself with other people's lack of sense faculties, you won't feel your life is so tough anymore. If you are blind or paralyzed now, you will know how good your life used to be. 3.4 Lacking the olfactory or nose faculty and the gustatory or tongue faculty. Recent research has largely advanced our understanding and knowledge about the eye and ear faculties, but less research has been done on the nose and tongue faculties. In recent years, cases of smell and taste disorders have been rising across the world, so there is an urgent need to prioritize the related research. For example, a British college student suffers from ageusia and has lost his sense of taste, so he cannot distinguish the taste of salty water from pure water, barbecue ribs from mashed potatoes. An American patient has taste disorder, so for him an apple tastes like rice, and fresh milk tastes like expired beer. To taste something, in addition to using the tongue faculty, we also rely on the nose faculty. According to the Treasury of Abhidharma, a human tongue can discern 6 kinds of taste: sweet, sour, spicy, salty, astringent, and bitter, whereas a human's nose can detect a few hundred odors. So, when a person cannot smell, he can hardly taste well. Modern medicine believes that young people are more sensitive to smell and taste. Around the age of 60, people start to experience a significant decline in their sense of taste and smell. At the age of 80, around 3/4 of the population experiences some loss of taste and smell. Many seniors at Larungar are like this. When young, they used to enjoy the variety of flavors, but now they've lost teeth and everything tastes the same to them. They are fine with any food, as long as it is soft to chew. If we have impaired ability to taste and smell, does it impact our Dharma study? Probably yes. Although the impact is not as noticeable as impaired vision and hearing, it may still challenge people's ability to completely understand and grasp the Dharma. Even if we are not so smart that we can clearly remember many Buddhist texts, we are fortunate to possess all our sense faculties, thanks to the blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. When we have such a human form with intact sense faculties, we must practice diligently. On the one hand, we generate compassion toward those beings lacking sense faculties. On the other hand, knowing we are so fortunate to have all the advantages related to Dharma, we must practice the authentic Dharma with great diligence. 4. The advantage of intention. If you don't have a conflicting lifestyle, you have the advantage of intention. Conflicting lifestyle specifically refers to the lifestyles of individuals born into communities engaged in negative activities such as hunting, prostitution, and so on, and have been involved in these activities since their early youth. In ancient India, the caste system dictated almost every aspect of an Indian person's religious and social life. An Indian's caste identity was determined at birth. So, for example, if a person was born into the family of a Kshatriyas, warriors and rulers, or a Vaishyas, traders and merchants caste, their offspring would always have privilege over people in the lower caste. In comparison, if a person was born into the family of a Dalits, outcasts caste, their offspring would have to remain in the communities of hunters, butchers, or prostitutes. Their negative actions would inevitably lead them down a wrong path, resulting in bad consequences. The lifestyle they lived is considered to be conflicting. Butchers kill so many chickens, sheep, pigs, and cows at farmers' markets or slaughterhouses. They are very pitiful. There is a chicken butcher in the city of Chongqing whose nickname is the Quick Knife Li. He is very quick at slaughtering chickens. He charges 2 Chinese yuan for killing a chicken. Every day, he kills dozens of chickens, sometimes even over 200. When mentioning his work, Mr. Li and his wife are very proud. This is a good business. As long as we work hard, every day we can earn over 100 Chinese yuan. How very sad that people like this couple actually consider committing unwholesome deeds as a worthy skill. Many butchers in slaughterhouses spend their whole lives killing livestock. I used to chat with some of them when I organized life-releasing events. They said their job was to cut the necks of yaks at the slaughterhouse from morning till night, and sometimes they could kill up to 400 yaks in a day. What they do is actually very cruel, yet in their minds, it is something worth boasting about to others. Although we might not practice diligently, and our progress may not be very satisfying, compared to them, at least we are not involved in negative activities as they are, so we are still doing well. A monk I know once told me, "I haven't practiced diligently after taking my ordination, which I feel quite embarrassed about. But if I were still a layperson, given the lifestyle in my hometown, I would have had killed many yaks." Generally speaking, it is unavoidable for some lay Tibetans to kill yaks. The same is true for some Han Chinese people, especially non-Buddhist Han Chinese, to kill chickens or fish. We are so fortunate to not be part of them to avoid the conflicting lifestyle. However, Patrul Rinpoche says, but in fact, a conflicting lifestyle also includes anyone whose every thought, word, and deed is contrary to the Dharma. It seems that Patrul Rinpoche sets a higher standard for not living a conflicting lifestyle. Thus, many of us cannot reach this high standard. But according to my understanding, here Patrul Rinpoche refers to those whose thoughts, words, and deeds are involved only in wrongdoings and never in wholesome deeds, including prostitutes and butchers who always generate evil thoughts, speak evil words, and conduct evil deeds. Such people are considered living a conflicting lifestyle. Generally speaking, the conflicting lifestyle, mentioned in many teachers' instructions, refers to the following situations. A monastic disrobes and commits many wrongdoings, or a devout lay practitioner discards Buddhism, converts to another spiritual tradition, and gives up all their Dharma practice. Therefore, very often Dharma masters urge their disciples, do not become a person with a conflicting lifestyle, which implies, do not disrobe or do not forget the Dharma you've learned and commit wrongdoings. With the blessings of the Guru and the 3 jewels, you, Dharma students who are present in class, have the great opportunity to receive the teachings. This is the result of the merits you have accumulated through virtuous actions in the past hundreds and thousands of kalpas. Grasp this opportunity tightly, like blind men holding onto an elephant's tail, and do not let go of it. As the lyrics of a song say, "Wherever I am sent, I will never forget you, my dear mother." Similarly, wherever you stay or go, you should be willing to sacrifice your precious life rather than discard the precious Dharma and your efforts to benefit others. Each one of us should have such determination. Remember that everything is impermanent. Although we gather happily here today, in a few years we may be separated from each other. Recently, I looked at the photos that the great Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche took with us at the Vajra seat in India. Several people in those photos have passed away, including Khenpo Chopa, Tulku Palnor, 1932-2009, and another senior lama. Those alive in the photos may also pass away in a few years. This impermanence applies to everything and everyone. However, as long as you are truly determined, you can always radiate compassion and wisdom, dispelling the darkness of ignorance around you, no matter where you are. This is the power of the Dharma. If you do not want to lead a conflicting lifestyle, you should frequently pray to the Guru and the Three Jewels. When engaging in even the smallest virtuous acts, such as offering a butter lamp, a stick of incense, or a prostration, you should also aspire for all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to bless you at every moment so that you will never be reborn as a person leading a conflicting lifestyle. Consequently, you can always perform wholesome deeds and benefit others in this life and future lives. Such an aspiration has great power. When a person's mind is tamed in this way, their speech and actions will easily become gentle. After all, speech and actions are servants of the mind. It is similar to being on good terms with the CEO of a corporation, which makes it easier to get along with department managers. Even if a person is not born into a community leading a conflicting lifestyle, they may become such a person in the future. Therefore, we must try our best to align our minds with the Dharma. The great Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche emphasized this point. With the blessings of the Guru and the Three Jewels, we now have a good intention, so we act in accordance with the Dharma when listening to teachings. We may even appear more noble than Bodhisattva Maitreya. However, external temptation is so strong, whereas internal mental strength is so weak. When unfavorable causes and conditions arise, it is possible that today we are in monastic robes, but a few years later we disrobe, becoming a person who doesn't even accept the law of karma and who struggles to make a living. In this world, a bad person may become good, and a good person may become bad. Such a change can happen very fast. Even if a monastic member studies and practices the Dharma diligently now, will he or she become a butcher or a prostitute later? If the person hasn't prayed very well and made aspirations, it is hard to say what he or she will become. To avoid regressing, we must not leave the Buddhist community. If you've taken ordination, you should stay in a monastery with monastics who possess pure conduct. Otherwise, if you often stay away from the Sangha and stay with secular people, gradually you will regress into a secular person. If you are a householder, you should also stay close with a Buddhist group and engage in virtuous deeds together with like-minded peers, such as life-releasing, hearing, contemplating, and meditating. Otherwise, once your negative karma appears, you may deviate from the right path. By then, even if someone wants to bring you back, it will be as difficult as trying to find a needle in the ocean. We are living in a chaotic society. Day and night, people are busy with trivial worldly things. There are very few people who seek ultimate liberation. Given the macro environment, we'd better not leave the pure Buddhist community. Meanwhile, we should often pray to the Guru and to the Three Jewels. 5. The advantage of faith. If one lacks faith in the Dharma but trusts powerful gods, nagas, or other spiritual systems, then no matter how much faith one might place in them, none of them can protect one from the sufferings of samsara or from the rebirth in lower realms. When visiting the Karma Kagyu Center in Malacca, Malaysia, the great Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche gave a supreme instruction. In my life, I always believe that the most important things in Buddhism are wisdom, compassion, and faith. Without faith, we will never realize the ultimate meaning of the Buddha's teaching. Without wisdom, we won't distinguish and choose right from wrong amid the endless, intricate, and diverse things in this fast-paced era, where science and technology develop rapidly and Tirthakas become more rampant. Without compassion, we are not qualified as Mahayana Buddhists. These three things complement each other, and none is dispensable. Later, I reflected on Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche's words and felt that this instruction summarizes something very important. Indeed, an instruction from a realized master may have only a few words, but it sums up all the piths a practitioner must know. It is impossible for a practitioner to attain realization if he doesn't have wisdom, compassion, and faith. Among the three, faith is particularly important. Mipham Rinpoche says, "Faith is the root of the Dharma. Faith amplifies all virtues and merits. It is with faith that we have the opportunity to attain enlightenment." Many scholars study and research Buddhism assiduously, but their research output brings little benefit to themselves and others. Why? It is because these scholars lack faith. The Flower Garland Sutra says, "Those beings with little faith can hardly know the divine teachings on enlightenment." Even if people without faith are very smart and they study the Dharma day and night, it will be hard for them to grasp the profound meaning concerning enlightenment. Only through faith and diligent practice can one attain liberation. Those monastics and lay practitioners at Larungar who have strong faith can quickly fulfill the most important aspects of life. The best way to develop faith in the Dharma is through knowing its great qualities. Otherwise, your faith is just superficial. To know the great qualities of the Dharma, we must first know this. No matter how powerful Tirthakas are, and how much worship gods and Nagas receive, they themselves are still submerged in samsara. If they are not yet free from the ocean of sufferings, how can they help us solve our biggest issues pertaining to life and death? Other doctrines provide no way to liberate us from samsara, since their views and conduct only offer temporary relief. The elixir that can free us from samsara can only be found in the doctrine of Buddha Shakyamuni. Therefore, we must have irreversible faith in the Buddha's teaching and realization. It is then that we are considered fit vessels of the true Dharma. Therefore, we should carefully contemplate this. It is rare to have encountered the Dharma, and especially to have faith in the Dharma. Shantideva also says, "The appearance of the Buddhas in the world, true faith and the attainment of a human form, and aptitude for good, all these are rare. When will they come to me again?" Many Buddhists believe they convert to Buddhism by chance. But I don't think "by chance" is a valid explanation. It is because you have conducted innumerable virtuous deeds in the past, so you have the opportunity to study the Dharma in the present. Thus, we must seize the opportunity and generate extraordinary faith in the teachings of the Buddha and the realization of the Dharma that is as unwavering as the King of Mountains. Moreover, we must not only practice the Dharma ourselves, but also try our very best to propagate the Dharma to other beings. Benefiting oneself and others is not only the duty of monastics, but also the duty of lay practitioners. Longchen says, "Beings who are utterly sublime are vessels for the stainless Dharma. Through learning and reflection, they attain its essence. They discipline themselves, and others they establish in the virtuous life. Their practice, like the King of Mountains, is unshakable. They are the ensigns of the sage's victory." Householders, or better, those who have gone forth to homelessness. The teacher has declared them both to have a precious human form. Please keep this verse in mind. What does it mean? Benefiting oneself and others is not a passionate conduct that only lasts for 2 or 3 days. If you make a bodhicitta vow to help others today, but submit a letter of resignation a few days later and quit your vow, you are as unstable as the prayer flags blowing in the wind. You shouldn't be like this. Instead, you should be as stable as the king of mountains. As such, even if you don't appear as a sage or a noble monastic, but just an ordinary practitioner, you are still considered to have a precious human form. Therefore, when studying the Dharma, it is very important to tame your own mind and help others. Meanwhile, you should develop irreversible faith in the Buddha's doctrine. Make sure you don't blindly follow what others say. Let's all give a check. I have been studying the Dharma for many years. If someone promotes another spiritual tradition, saying it is better, and this endorser sounds eloquent and persuasive, will my faith in Buddhism stumble? Will I discard Buddhism and convert to his tradition? If your answer is yes, it means you haven't yet established solid conviction about Buddhism. But when conviction arises, even if tens of thousands of Tirthikas come to persuade you, your faith in Buddhism won't be shaken at all. Every one of us should generate rational faith in Buddhism, as said in Surpassing the Celestial Beings, I have no attachments to the Buddha, least I have hatred towards Samkhya folks and other Tirthikas. Whoever possesses reasonable teachings, I treat him as my master and learn from him. After examining with wisdom and analyzing with reasoning, it is without a doubt that Buddha Shakyamuni is the only guide who discovered the ultimate truth. We can take refuge in the Buddha with confidence, knowing that he doesn't and won't deceive us. It is like when an employee finds a completely reliable employer who will never deceive his staff. This employee can finally rest assured. If our faith in the Buddha penetrates deep into the bones, instead of just leaving an erasable mark on the skin surface, and we truly believe from the bottom of our hearts that the Buddha is unparalleled, then our faith will never waver. To summarize, faith is the basis of the 5 individual advantages. It is not until a person generates uncontrived faith in the Buddha that he is finally an authentic Buddhist. With faith, everything is easy to attain. Without faith, it is like you cannot enter a house without the key. You are excluded from enjoying the beauty inside. Therefore, we should all strengthen our faith. We should feel blissful that we have encountered the precious Dharma in this very life.